Farmers are out in the fields as seeding has begun in our province. But just how are the conditions in the fields as we start the growing season, especially after several recent years of drought and fires? Well, for more on this, we are joined by Trevor Hadwin. He is an agroclimate specialist with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. Trevor, thank you so much for joining us.
Great to be with you.
So first off, just how were moisture conditions looking kind of as we went into winter?
Certainly moisture conditions had improved through the last year. We went into winter in a fairly promising way throughout most of the province. And we actually received really good moisture through the winter period through much of the province. Some areas are a little bit different than others, but we're in a tremendously better situation than we were the last number of years going into the spring.
Yeah, and I know the spring melt can always be a bit of a challenge as well sometimes. How did that kind of pan out in terms of how that happened?
Yeah, the snow melt was slow this year, and that always benefits the soil moisture. So we ended up gaining a lot of moisture from that snow that we had. Very little of it actually ran off and got into our streams. So we did manage to get a lot of soil moisture buildup from the snowpack, and that is what farmers are relying on right now during this hot, dry period.
Yeah, and the latest drought map is now out. So how are conditions looking as of the end of April?
As of the end of April, most of the agricultural areas in Saskatchewan are not in an official drought category. We do have some areas that we're watching that are classified as abnormally dry. Some of those include areas along the U.S. Border in the south region, as well as areas north of Saskatoon, and some areas along the eastern Manitoba border as well. But overall conditions are very good in the province as of the end of April. And now that we're halfway through May, we've received some really dry and hot conditions over the last 2 weeks that are causing the ground to dry out a little bit. We've seen drops in our soil moisture right across the province, and leading to a little bit more concern than we did at the end of last month, but certainly still in an area of much more positive aspect than we've seen in the last number of years for the province.
We are getting some rain kind of throughout these next few days here, Trevor. Just how beneficial is that going to be, especially as we get right into this kind of beginning of the growing season?
Yeah, we've actually advanced quite a bit in terms of our provincial seeding numbers. So the areas that have been seeded already will benefit greatly from the precipitation that we've seen. Precipitation also slows down that seeding a little bit. So producers that still haven't got it out in the fields and or limited seeding done, mostly in the south or the northeastern corner of the province, they're the furthest behind. Those areas probably want a little bit more warmth and dry conditions to get seeding done. But areas down in that southwest corner that are most advanced in seeding really want this moisture right now. The more moisture they can get right now will set them up for a really good spring and really good germination rates and just green up those pastures and set themselves up for a really good growing season.
So the moisture looking good, as you mentioned, in some places, and we've got the rain right now, but just how quickly can that change as we go through the rest of spring and summer? Just how fast can things dry out?
Yeah, things can change really quickly. And depending on what crop you're looking at and how things change, obviously there's moisture deficits that can cause some problems with some crops. Heat is also a big problem with some varieties as well. So depending on how the temperatures change and how much rainfall we get, we always say that we're 2 weeks away from a drought, no matter what kind of conditions we have. So again, we're hopeful for the season. We have good moisture in the ground right now. And as long as we continue to get timely rains throughout the early part of the growing season, things should be looking very positive for this year.
Yeah, I was surprised looking at that drought map because, as you mentioned, there's few areas that we're seeing there, especially in the southern half of the province, that are under drought. Has this kind of sort of a new phase that we're in where we are not seeing a lot of drought in the province, given that the last few years we have seen quite severe drought in places?
Yeah, we've had 3 or 4 years of fairly significant drought, depending on what you're looking at through the prairie region. and also much of Western Canada. If you look at that drought map and compare how we were last year to this year, it's tremendously different. We're seeing good moisture right across the prairie region, depending on the time frame and everything else, but relatively good. Alberta and Manitoba don't have a lot of drought conditions in them right now either. We are concerned a little bit about water supply later on in the year throughout Western Canada, both in British Columbia as well as the prairie region. We rely heavily on the winter snowpack in the mountain regions, on the prairies for runoff, as well as British Columbia relies heavily on that for their streams and water supplies and hydro generation and irrigation. So that was low this year, and the reservoirs that filled by those, including Lake Diefenbaker, are good right now, but they can certainly drop as soon as we start utilizing that water and the water starts to be used by irrigation or evapotranspiration as well.
All right, something we'll be keeping our eye on. Trevor, thank you so much for joining us.
Great to be with you. Thank you.